All right, welcome to our webinar on brand sponsorship today. I have the pleasure of being with Kevin K here. I'll give a quick introduction in a sec. Just do some housekeeping. We're going to be recording, so we can send this out to anybody else who has missed it or is still here for replay. If you have any questions during the presentation, just drop them into the Q&A panel on the right. We will address them at the end of the session. I'll be monitoring the chat and QA while Kevin's talking. So if any questions or any comments, I'll be able to respond to those. All right, cool. Anyway, so probably wondering if you haven't read the bio, who Kevin is. Here he is. Kevin is a seasoned music industry veteran, whose career spans multiple decades and many prestigious roles across major record labels and entertainment companies. While he was a legal assistant in New York, he quickly transitioned into the industry through positions at a couple record labels before becoming a booking agent and artist development director for the Goo Goo Dolls prior to their large break in the early 90s. If I got that right on the date, I hope.
Yeah, late 80s actually.
Late 80s, okay. I was still a little itty bitty then.
My gosh, there's just a punk band.
This trajectory includes leadership positions at prominent labels including Island, V2 Records, DreamWorks, Virgin, and Sony Music Nashville. He's worked with U2, Elton John, Rolling Stones, Kenny Chesney, among many others, as we know. So, without further ado, I will pass it off to you, Kevin, and let you go at it.
Well, Matt, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to join you on this webinar and talk about something that I've been involved in, brand sponsorships for many years. And thanks for the intro. Appreciate that. And yeah, I've been doing this a long time and had the privilege of working with some great artists over the years, working at some wonderful labels, and kind of a crazy trajectory that I've taken. Definitely not a straight line, but it all does kind of come together. And, just like, if I can ask, how many artists do we have with us today? Or
they're still coming in, so no specific number.
Okay.
But
So I would just want everyone to, just like you, I was an artist at one point in my career before I made this decision to switch over to the business side. So I know exactly, being in your shoes, what you go through, understanding the balance, especially today more so than ever, between being the creative and being the business person. And as I said, I've been involved with sponsorships. It started for me when I was at DreamWorks Records and really saw an opportunity for us as a new label whose mandate was to sign only brand new artists and actually take the time to develop them and break them. We were not in the business of signing veteran artists, even though Mo Austin and Lenny Waronker, who were running DreamWorks, started Reprise Records and they were both at Warner Brothers for decades. And those two guys, probably the nicest guys in the music industry. Every major veteran artist at Warner Brothers and Reprise wanted to come to DreamWorks because they wanted to be back with Mo and Lenny, and they shut the door on them and said, sorry, we're building something new and we're going to be doing it with only brand new artists. And it really got me thinking. A good friend of mine that I went to college with started her own sponsorship company, and I started to watch what she was doing and was very intrigued by those types of partnerships. And then I started looking at the sports industry and I thought, wow, they generate a lot of revenue and they really get these teams get to further their marketing platforms with these major budgets that the brands had. And I looked at the music industry. I'm like, wow, we really don't do that. Up until that time, there were a couple big deals that had happened in the music industry. Michael Jackson with Pepsi and Sting. I forget who he had done, but there were just a handful because evidently, what I found, and this really was true, that most of the music industry artists, didn't feel like they didn't want to sell out. They didn't want to sell out to corporate America. They wanted to do their music and stand by what they were doing. But at the same time, I thought to myself, well, if we're a label with brand new artists, we need some help. We need some leverage, because even though we were afforded the opportunity to really develop the artists, I just thought from a marketing perspective, we could make a difference. And that's when I started. DreamWorks allowed me to create a sponsorship division. And that's when I really started to dive in. And it's been, all those years. And I was, nobody was really doing it back then at all. And I would have conversations with our own artists and their managers, and they pushed back on me as well, saying, well, we don't want to sell out, we don't want to do this. My answer to them was, you already sold out. You signed a record deal with a major corporation, DreamWorks, so you're not selling out. We're partnering with these brands to help further who you are as an artist, generate a source of revenue. And if we do this correctly, to be able to partner with these big brands' marketing platforms and their budgets, which would dwarf anything that we had. So it's only going to help further your career. And those conversations were really important. And it took a while to go through this. But, so thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And, so let's get into, what this process really looks like. And I wanted to start out, and I know the first item on this agenda is like, what is brand sponsorship? And I'm going to read probably the best definition that I've ever found, and it comes from IEG, which is probably the world's largest sponsorship consultancy out there. So, and this is their definition, but I do use it. Definitely got to give them credit for the way they really expressed what this is. So sponsorship, it's a form of partnership marketing that exists when a company supports an event, an individual, an artist, or another company, either financially or providing a service or product. The sponsor in return gets certain rights, benefits, and a unique marketing opportunity to work with that individual or an event, or in this case, an artist. So it's really, there's a definite, a lot of people look at what this is. So it's not just a sponsorship fee. You want to be able to generate revenue, but it could be furthering your marketing. It could give you an opportunity to cut expenses. Many artists that I've worked with, will get a hotel sponsor, and, they get their rooms paid for while they're on the road. So yeah, it wasn't a cash infusion into what they're doing, but they saved on a huge expense while they're on the road. So, sometimes then what we'll call that in-kind donations or in-kind fee for that type of sponsorship. And I know, independent artists, I hear this all the time in regards to artists thinking they need to be at a certain level to get a sponsorship, because most of the time they'll see the big tours out there, they'll see the bigger artists with big brands behind them. But any independent artist, regardless of what level you're at, can get a sponsorship. Now, there are certain things that you need to have in place before that happens. And most of it comes to you being what I'll call brand ready. Meaning, do you have your marketing plan in place? Have you put your brand and your socials in order? Have you as an artist, built your fan base? Do you have a website? Have you created an email list of people? Are you selling merchandise? Are you putting your own music out? Are you doing your videos? All your communications, making sure that your tone is correct in everything that you do, because these are all things that a brand is going to look at. So that's creating your brand equity. Are you brand ready? And the second definition of are you brand ready is to have an understanding of brands and what they look for and why do they look at putting together a partnership with an artist. And those are things that you can do on your own. Start to look at brands, go to their website, and start to see some of the advertising that they're doing. Look at the partnerships they're doing. Look at, even the big festivals, right? So pull up Lollapalooza and go to their website and look at who their brand sponsors are, who are their partners. Go to those partners' websites and look at their news, and you'll find a lot of information basically telling you why they're doing this and what they're trying to achieve with this. Because one of the things that, any artist, or if there's, any managers who are here today on this webinar, as you start to think about what's good for your artist, one of the hardest conversations to have for me as I'm working with managers or artists is to get them to understand that it's not about them. It's all about the brand. If you as the artist have done your job and laid your foundation and you've created a strong brand, it's about helping this potential sponsor solve the problem that they have. And those problems that sponsors are looking to solve are, do they have a new product that's coming out? Do they have a new service that they're rolling out? Are they looking to hit a new demographic or a new market? Are they looking to change their image? And can you help them achieve that by partnering with them through who you are as an artist? But it's really hard sometimes to have the artist or the manager put themselves in the shoes of who the brand is and know that it's about helping them. The artist will succeed understanding that and putting that partnership together. You will succeed by either getting that sponsorship fee, furthering your marketing, partnering with them, and creating those type of opportunities. But you really got to pay a lot of attention to who and what they're trying to do. So I, through the years as I've done this, and as an independent artist who even might be, starting out or been around for a couple of years, you have so many companies right in your own city. Companies who are looking for opportunities to market. And look, music is the sexy industry. Brands are looking for those opportunities. Turn on the radio. And as you're listening, don't punch out on the commercials. Listen to who is actually buying advertising. And it's local companies. If they have money to spend on radio, which is not cheap, but we all know that listenership at radio is dwindling. But they're paying a lot of money to run those ads. Maybe they should be thinking about using part of that budget to partner with an artist right in their town. Turn on the TV, same situation. You could look at what local companies are spending money right now. I sit here in Detroit, and I mean, many of you probably have the same type of local companies that run a lot of television, a lot of radio. I find here there's some huge law firms that just run tens of millions of dollars a year in television advertising, these litigation firms. And a couple of years ago, as I'm watching TV and one of those commercials come on, I usually punch them out because I can't take them because they're on like constantly. But this time it kicked off with a local artist. And I'm watching her, and they're using her footage from a show. It's her music. And I thought, wow, okay, a local artist is actually partnered up with this huge law firm. Now, from what I come to understand, it was definitely the law firm's agency who decided to do this and reached out to this artist because she, has a brand name here in town, has been doing it for a long time, has a big following. And hopefully, I'm going to guess that they licensed her music for this. But that television and that commercial ran for a good 3 months and probably 10, 20 times a day. No local artist has that kind of marketing budget. I came to find out that TV campaign that she was a part of, yes, she did get sync money. They did license her music, but the amount of television exposure took her to a whole different level because she doesn't have that kind of marketing budget. No local artist does. But that partnership worked out so well, and they used her on her website. The marketing that was done socially for both parties, her and the law firm, taking advantage of that. She performed at a couple of their big events that they had. So from a revenue perspective for her was a huge windfall, which parlayed into so many other things. And I know after that, she hit a big tour, and regionally, that law firm was still a sponsor of hers on the road. So I don't know the specifics in regards to what kind of money she generated, but it definitely propelled her. So, that's one thing to start to look at, is that you can do this in your own town, looking at some of the companies, and look, it could be starting out as small as a $5,000 sponsorship. But you get a couple of those, all of a sudden you have $10,000, and that's a great, revenue stream that, you can start to build, and the strategies that, I've taught work really anywhere, be it music. I'll use this example all the time in regards to sports. When my sons were playing Little League football and we got them into, a pretty big organization here, I was not going to be a parent who was going to fundraise, and went to the first board meeting, talked to the president, told him who I was, what I did. And I asked him, if you create a board position for me, I don't need any help, but I will bring in sponsors so this organization and parents don't have to fundraise at all. And took a couple conversations. He definitely didn't think I could do it, didn't believe in it, relented and said, okay, we're going to do it. And in the 5 years that I did that, I generated over $80,000 in sponsorship revenue for a youth football organization, with the presenting sponsor that I brought in of the organization spending a 5-figure multi-year deal. So 5 figures, he did it for 5 years. And then I brought in other sponsors after that. So these strategies do work on a local level. And a youth football organization, the type of benefits that we could offer him weren't the biggest in the world, but he was looking to tap into a whole new market where we were based. He wasn't getting enough sales, and it was a car dealership. He wasn't getting enough sales in the area where we were, and the teams that we were playing in those other areas. So he was looking for a different type of outlet to actually get in front of people, to be able to talk to them. Because that's the other great thing about a sponsorship, is that companies are looking for integration, because we all know in the digital world, it's just cold and impersonal, and you can only do so much, and you really can't guarantee much. But in order for a company to start to build a bigger fan base or a bigger customer base, and they know that artists have a loyal, rabid fan base, that having these types of conversations and looking at the human part of it, to be able to integrate, makes a lot of sense. Right before COVID happened, the big brands out there finally realized that it was time to start to move out of the digital age. Not that their digital marketing wasn't going to happen, but they felt that they lost the conversation. They didn't know who their customers were anymore. And they were going to start dedicating, many of the big brands were going to start dedicating 50% of their marketing budgets to go back to sponsorships, back to getting into events, back to having real conversations with people out there. And letting people know that we're a company, yes, but we're a company made up of humans as well. And we needed to start to create that kind of community. Then COVID hit, and of course, everything, from an event standpoint, went away. But now that we're back and we're seeing it even, more, and I am starting to see artists here in Detroit, mid-level artists, new artists, I'm seeing them have some sponsors, and it might be, a couple small ones, but it is a start. And as they continue to grow, they'll put themselves in a position to start to negotiate and get bigger sponsors out there. So I want you to feel comfortable to know that you can do this. You can do it regardless of whatever level you're at as an artist. So don't listen to the myth out there that says you have to be at a certain level, because I'm here to tell you that that's not true. It can happen. So one of the things that, you need to be able to do first. So it's not just about calling up any company right away and saying, will you sponsor? There is a process that you need to go through and start to put together, a plan for what you need before any phone calls are made. So part of that plan is really diving into your analytics as a band. Do you have an email list? What does that number look like? Break down all of your socials. Start to figure out where your numbers are at with that. Your shows. How many shows are you playing? Hopefully you've been keeping track of how many people have been at those shows. Do you have your music? Is it ready? Do you have videos? Do you have a website? Do you have a newsletter? These are all the assets that you need to gather for yourself. Prepare all that, because based on those assets, then you can start to create the benefits for a potential sponsor. And having an understanding of what you'll be able to give a sponsor in return for that fee is going to be really important, because they're going to want to know, okay, if I sponsor and I work with you, like, how am I going to, what are my benefits? What am I going to be able to do with you? Because I have a business and I have that problem. I have this new product it's coming out. I'm looking for an opportunity to get this in front of people, and your fan base, who you are as an artist, your demographic of fans is exactly who I'm looking to tap into. And you're an artist out there that I can see is doing, some really cool things, and I want to be able to work with you on this. So what benefits will I be able to get in return if I sponsor you? So your benefits come out of your assets, understanding who you are as an artist, your brand, putting all that together. So that becomes part of your plan. The next part is then, okay, so what companies should I go after? And a lot of times people will go after companies that, Pepsi's big into music and they're out there sponsoring a lot of things. But you're probably not going to have a conversation with Pepsi, PepsiCo and the marketing department nationally. Not to say that you couldn't drill down and find out who local distributors are, who then have local marketing budgets as well. But just because a sponsor looks good on paper doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right fit, meaning that companies' objectives, initiatives for the year, or budget might not align with who you are as an artist. So I always, people I work with, I have them go through an exercise, and I have them write down all the companies that they like and think about products that you use. Do you use a specific type of toothpaste? Do you drink, a certain pop, or is there a liquor that you like? What type of clothing do you wear? Think about things that you use every day, and those are potential companies that you might want to think about reaching out to, because you use their products, you like their products, you have a vested interest in who they are as a company, which makes it a lot easier to do. Because what you don't want to do And I tell people this all the time. If you're going to do this, you got to be able to also walk away from the money. Meaning, if the partnership is not the right fit, just because they're offering doesn't mean that you should take it. And here's a story. So I just started the entertainment sponsorship group. We're a couple years old, and a good friend of mine started working for one of the big agencies here in Detroit, and they did a lot of work for General Motors. And at the time, General Motors Cadillac and specifically had licensed Led Zeppelin music. Spent tens of millions of dollars on that licensing. So then Robert Plant was going to hit the road. And so his tour started. Cadillac was a big sponsor of that. And I think it was the second or third stop was Detroit. Now, Cadillac and General Motors are based right here in Detroit. So there was a big get together before the concert at the venue. And the CEO of General Motors, all the heads of Cadillac were there. Of course, all the, my friend and all the people at the marketing company were there. So this was a big deal that, they're having dinner and Robert was going to speak and spend time with them before the show. So they're all sitting there. Robert walks in, goes to the podium. Excuse my language, but first words out of his mouth, "How the fuck are you, Chrysler?" Chrysler, one of the big three, GM's competition. General Motors just paid Robert Plant tens of millions of dollars, and he addresses them as their competitor. Wow. Problem. My friend calls me. She's backstage crying. And I said, did you or anybody sit down with Robert or his management company and vet him out to see if he actually believed in Cadillac, that he could actually, speak positively about this brand? Or did he just take the money and run and you guys gave it to him? And her answer was, no, we didn't do that. And I'm like, mistake, right? You should have vetted him out. And actually, Robert, should have done the same thing. And his camp should have done the same thing. But they took the money and ran. And that definitely, as much as Cadillac wanted Led Zeppelin music, which demographically made a lot of sense for them to do that, that's a situation where they should have, left the money and not did that partnership, because it created such a big problem moving forward. And it was miserable. So you got to understand that you got to work with a company that you believe in, who then has mutual belief in who you are. So going through that process takes time. As I said, put together the companies that you like, things that you use, companies you would like to work with. And then the second part of that exercise is to put a list together of companies that you don't like. Because then those are the ones you just stay away from. And even if for some crazy reason, I have seen this happen, where a company reaches out to you because they like what you're doing and they want to do something, but if it's something you don't believe in, don't do it. Because one slip up could mean everything. And, when I was at DreamWorks and we were just getting that division off the ground, and I was having conversations, with our bands and management, and Matt, you and I were talking about Papa Roach earlier. And so this happened to Papa Roach. So their manager was really excited about this opportunity, really wanted to get into this type of marketing. So as he and I were having conversations, and the guy was like a sponge, like he took everything I had to say. And one day he calls me up, he goes, "Hey, I got us a sponsorship with Pepsi Blue." If you remember, Pepsi, had this Pepsi Blue. So this was going back to maybe early 2000s, 2001, maybe 2002. Can't remember. But he goes, "Yeah, we got this deal. And man, they gave us a great money. It's going to be able to pay for our video. They're going to be a sponsor with us on the tour. So, which is great because now they're getting, I think they were going to pay for 2 or 3 videos, which meant that DreamWorks didn't have to pay for the video. Secondly, the band then wasn't in debt and didn't have to pay that money back. So it saved all of us, a good thing. So at the time, then Papa Roach was going on Ozfest, and they had a pretty good spot on Ozfest. And I remember I hooked back up with the band. I think we're in Cincinnati, and I'm backstage, and the band is just looking sad. And some of their team, I'm like, what is going on? Somebody, and they're like, we lost our sponsorship with Pepsi. I'm like, well, what happened? Evidently, I think a week before, I don't know what city they were in, but as Papa Roach was on stage, Jacoby decided that he, was going to urinate, and he used a Gatorade bottle. And I believe it was Billboard who got a picture of that and actually published what was happening. Now, Gatorade is owned by PepsiCo. PepsiCo is the parent company, the corporate. There are literally well over 100 brands that they have underneath. Pepsi Blue and Pepsi and Gatorade are all different brands under PepsiCo. So basically what Kobe was doing was pissing all over Pepsi, literally. And they're the ones who, sponsored them. So you got to understand so much about the brand. And that goes back to what I was talking earlier. Are you brand ready? Understanding, meaning the second definition, meaning understanding who the brand is and what they're all about. Because one slip up will screw up everything. And those 2 examples were huge. A lot of money was put forward, great opportunities for, both of those artists, and, it backfired because you didn't do your due diligence. You didn't vet through everything to make sure that everybody is on the same page and that there was a true honest. You got to be open, honest, and transparent. I tell this to people all the time in this industry, especially. You have to be. And when it comes to working with brands, they're very specific. They have a lot to lose. I know the hip hop community sometimes has a hard time trying to get brands because just the nature of the music, brands don't want to align themselves with things like that. And that's no fault. The artist is the artist. They're going to do what they do. So that's why it takes a certain brand to form that partnership who gets that and doesn't have a problem, aligning themselves with that type of artists. So that becomes a big part of your plan before you even reach out and make a phone call to anybody. And then when you do get to that point, how do you approach a company? Just like anyone, do your research, go to their website, look them up, figure out who their marketing director is if they have a marketing department. And if for whatever reason, if you're dealing with a local company and they don't have the information that you need, go to one of their stores. Go talk to somebody and say, look, I'm trying to reach, the marketing person at this company. Can you help me? Because nothing's listed. Tell them who you are. Tell them you're an artist and you're looking to, have a conversation about a potential partnership. We have some cool events coming up, or we have some great shows coming up, and we believe in your company, would like to work with you. Like I said, companies are looking for opportunities to market. They all of them are. And even ones that aren't marketing, they might want to, but they don't know how to go about it. A lot of times, and I hear this all the time from smaller companies and brands that I talk with, well, I don't know how to, get to the artist. They want to be able to do something, but they don't know. And then as the artist doesn't know the brands, having those conversations, and look in your own community. Go to some business meetings. I tell people all the time, you want to get a pulse on businesses in your community or your area. Go to the Chamber of Commerce. Go to the Chamber of Commerce, introduce yourself, go to some of their events, and have a conversation with them, because Chamber of Commerce has a pulse on all local businesses of what's happening. They're kind of like the epicenter of that. It's a great resource to tap into. It's not going to cost you anything. Take the president or take their head of marketing out, take them out for coffee, have a conversation with them, build that relationship with them. A lot of times they put on events for their businesses. Maybe you can do a performance there and be able to be introduced to all of these companies. And if you impress them enough, that's a great way to start, potential partnership with no cost to you, just some of your time. But it's about building those relationships. Just like in the music industry, working in the brand world, it is about relationships. It's about working and understanding these companies. And just like the music industry, sadly, a lot of people change seats quite frequently at companies. So you're going to have to get used to that. You might build a relationship, and it's happened to me so many times. You got to have a great relationship. I go back a month later, oh, that person's gone. We got a new person. Oh, I got to build all this up again, and then fill them in. Yeah, you guys were a sponsor with us a year ago. This is what we did. We'd love to work with you once again, but it's about networking, building relationships. So that becomes a big part of what you need to do before even, making that first phone call. I know a lot of people just want to jump in, but I'm here to tell you, it's not about smiling and dialing. You can't just, because sometimes you want to get one shot sometimes with these companies. And certain companies, are getting hit up from many different areas. Think about it. If you're a local company, you're probably getting approached by the youth football organizations, the high schools, it could be colleges, could be, any other, boys and girls clubs or things that are out there. So even though a company is local, they're getting hit up for donations and other things. And the great thing about what you'll be doing, if you decide to try to do a sponsorship, that it's not a donation. You don't have your hand out saying, hey, I'm looking for a donation. You're actually creating an opportunity to partner with them, to give them marketing benefits in return for what they're doing. And that's a big difference between, so this isn't philanthropy. So you actually have something that you're going to be able to give in return for their, fee to you, unlike just giving a donation. So you're kind of, you put yourself in a better position, I believe, than just, having your hand out, because so many people had their hand out. We want to do this. And that's why, even with my example to you, when I was, did that for the youth football organization, I didn't want us to have our hand out asking for donations and doing fundraising. There was a different way that we could do this. We had a very, very rapid, family network within the market that this dealership was looking to tap into. It worked out really, 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 really well. You can do the same thing. It's about understanding who you are as an artist. As I said before, your brand, having that foundation in place to be able to understand your assets, of the benefits that you can give a potential sponsor in return for either their fee to you or, and be able to partner with them on their marketing, just like the artist here in Detroit, who I told you about with the law firm. That was brilliant. It was a brilliant campaign. Hats off to her for, understanding. Hats off to her team, but hats off to, the law firm's agency to, and really it turned out that they were trying to hit a whole different market. They were looking, at a younger market to start to build up. Maybe they didn't need a law firm, but sometimes it's about just understanding that when the time comes, remember who we are. We're kind of cool because we're partnering up with some cool artists here in town. No different than, but that's what we did when I was at Jack Morton, which is a huge experiential agency, and worked on a global music initiative for General Motors. And it was the first initiative that General Motors ever did that wasn't tied to how many cars they sold through it. It was about trying to change their image, because they got to a point where they felt that they were our grandparents' car company and they wanted to tap into music. So we partnered up with different music festivals all around the world, but there were no cars on display. We never talked about cars. It was specifically to talk about the music, the artists, and the festival. No mention whatsoever of cars in anything that we did. All of the content that we created, being on site was not about, we had no banners, no signage, no cars, no nothing. It was about our host, who was Kyle Gass, and all the cool things that we did to create the content, working with the artists and the festivals. So sometimes having that understanding, it can be done differently. You don't necessarily always need to be, for them to have a product or a service. It could be about image, could be just tapping into new people. And that's part of your plan and part of your due diligence as you start to talk to potential companies, to find out what's important to them. What are their objectives? What are they trying to achieve? What are their initiatives for this year? How do we make this work? How can I help you achieve what you're trying to achieve? So, Matt, I don't know if we have any questions at all.
We do. Yeah, we have a few here. See, I got one from Lena. If I'm messing that up, sorry. Have you ever dealt with putting out PR fires like those? And if so, how do you counter that with positive future brand deals?
Well, I mean, I can go back to the Papa Roach example. I mean, we had to, really band and us as a label needed to really, backtrack that. And I remember we just had to be honest. It was a mistake. And the band did own that. I mean, they really came out and owned it. I know they did some interviews and apologized. There is no excuse for not understanding, even though they didn't understand. And I remember telling the manager, I'm like, dude, that's why you should have had me part of those conversations. He had no idea that Pepsi was as big as they were, and not understanding they had so many brands underneath. So I'm glad that the band owned it. And in those situations, you really have to. You got to be honest with it. There's no sense of backpedaling or trying to make an excuse, because that just makes it look like you don't know what you're doing and you're just trying to get out of it. Be accountable. Own it. All my time in this industry, I've always said, be open, honest, transparent. You have to be. Don't try to hide anything. And if you don't understand something along the way, ask questions. Put your hand up and be willing to learn. I think that shows people and it shows brands, as you have conversations with them, that they see that in you. Trust me, they like that. They want to be a part of individual and artist who is willing to work with them in a true partnership. Because when this is done right, and it's a true partnership and it becomes a multi-year partnership, that's the brilliance of it, because then you just start to build and expand upon so many other things. That's hugely important. So just if it's a fire, own it, and then you just start to, it's going to take time, right? It doesn't happen all at once. It's not one press release that goes out. Now you got to prove and put enough positive things in place over time. One of the other things in this industry that, I tell people all the time, and these are two statements that I came up with and really have lived by my entire career: frequency breeds familiarity and consistency breeds credibility. Over the years, I've added the term patience. I added patience to this, because you have to be in today's world, especially the digital world, where everyone wants everything to happen right away. That's not going to happen. So you got to be patient and you got to be creative, because there's no limit to creativity in what you do as an artist in regards to sponsorships. So that's hugely important. Frequency, familiarity. The more you do it, the more familiar you and everybody gets. Consistently do that over time, your credibility gets strong. And then be patient and be creative. It will equal success, not just in this industry or in business, and anything you do in life. That will work.
That could apply to social media. Most of us are impatient in general when it comes to content.
Yeah. I mean, I get today's world. Everyone wants everything instantaneously, but it doesn't work that way, especially when it comes to partnership marketing like this. It's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
This is a long-term marathon. And that's what marketing is all about.
I had jotted something down. Just in terms of like coming up with, where does someone feel like they need to start if they feel like they're just starting out as an artist, or whether they're a veteran artist? Is there like maybe a good starting fund amount to pursue to test the water? Like, you don't want to ask too much or too little, or does, what is the price that they ask for dependent on in terms of the partnership?
Well, the way I approach it, number one, going back to creating, your list of benefits of what you'll be able to offer, and start to look and put you can put your value to what you do as an artist. Like if you're an artist and you're playing 6 times a month and you're getting 300 people each show, that's 1,800 people. That's a nice little area. Okay. So think about that. You add in your social, how many followers you have in all of your platforms. Do you have, a website? Do you have your analytics? How many people are going to your website? Can you show a potential sponsor that people are spending 10 minutes at a time on your website? Maybe more if you got music and videos. Are you selling merch? How many people are you reaching with that? So these are all the things that you start to look at. And, there's no secret formula or scientific formula to come up with, it should be this price. So, you could really, number one, always ask them, what kind of what is their budget?
Yeah.
And try to work within, trying to help them. Because what you don't want to do is say, well, I'm going to give you all that and it's $2,500, and they've actually budgeted more for something like this, but you don't know because you didn't ask. So I always try to work with them. Like, what is your budget? Can we, hopefully we can make this work within, what your budget is. And they say, well, I got a $10,000 budget. Okay, so now you're going to be able to formulate and say, okay, well, we can work with that. If that's the budget you have for this, then let's put together that list of benefits. And, it starts in what you want to do is kind of put a one sheet together for them to give them an overview of who you are as an artist, maybe your links to your videos and your music, kind of a brief about what you're trying to accomplish, be it shows, or do you have a specific event, the opportunities that they be, list some of the benefits, your website, your socials, give them some of the numbers. And that becomes a conversation starter, because that's where the real proposal gets put together. So it's not just, I know people out there will put sponsorship packages together. I got a platinum, gold, and silver. Please don't do that. I'm here to tell you, don't do that, because that's just a shopping menu. And you want to be able to sit down and put together a proposal that is specific for this company. And that only happens by having conversations with them and figuring out what the budget is. Kind of put a price tag on the things that you have, but work with them as well. I mean, that's the way I do it. I mean, we customize, things. I don't subscribe to the gold, platinum, silver, and anyone who does that. I had a conversation today with somebody who had reached out to me, and he has an independent, sounds like a pretty cool music show that he's going to be doing PBS, and he's like, yeah, I need help, but I got a, platinum gold. And so I'm like, oh, I told him, got to take that down. Don't do that. So funny that I actually had that conversation today. Somebody reached out to me just a couple of days ago. I don't know the individual. He's sending me all his stuff to look at. So I'm intrigued to see what the show's about, but just, he's like, wow, you make a lot of sense. I like what I'm hearing. I'm like, I'm here to help if I can. And definitely don't do that.
So relevant. I know you touched on this a little bit, but aside from the few benefits and things that you mentioned, is there do you feel like there's a default or a base list of things that you want to make sure you have in your sponsorship plan?
In regards to benefits, do you mean, or
well, I guess could it be benefits? Could it be your analytics? I mean, is there anything else that beyond, I guess nothing specific, but just
everything that you are as an artist and everything that you do and touch, right? Because they're going to do their due diligence on you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if they go to your socials, are they going to see you having, are you swearing a lot in your conversations? They'll be able to pick up on your tone, things that you're doing. And you got to be very, you got to be cognizant, and that's part about building your brand, your tone, the way you communicate online is, they're going to be looking at all that. And if they're going to be seeing a lot of, funky pictures that you're posting and just having weird conversations, they're like, oh, this isn't an artist that we want to align with. They won't. They just won't. And they'll look at that. Trust me, they do a lot of their own homework on you because they have a lot to lose. And they're not about to put themselves in a bad position working with an artist. Now, granted, sometimes they can do all the due diligence in the world and everything looks good, right? Until that one time that the artist makes a mistake. Athletes are known to do this, where they do a great deal with Nike, and then for whatever reason, they're out in public and they're wearing Adidas and they get photographed. Oh, that's not good. Right? So everything's been good up until that point. And then all of a sudden they're photographed wearing a competitor's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Can't happen. You've got to be, if you're going to dedicate yourself to a company, you got to make sure that you're helping them achieve, and you got to work within that. You got to be, it's almost like you're not an employee of theirs, but you are an ambassador in many respects, and you got to be very cognizant about what you're doing. So those are some of the things that they're going to do. So, that helps create some of the benefits. I mean, understanding your brand and putting all of that together and putting it into that one sheet that you could because if you're going to have a conversation with a company and they're going to say, well, can you send me something? What you don't want to do is send them everything that you got. Put together a really good one sheet of some really strong information about you as an artist, what you're looking to do. Throw some benefits in there, that some of the things that they might be able to get, like tickets to a show or create a VIP section, pre-party, whatever you need to do. Put some things down, just enough to start the conversation. Because when you follow up, then that's when the ideas start to flow. That's when things start to get good. Because if they're interested and you've listed some things, then you can start talking about that. And before you know it, you're going to come up with ideas, or they're going to come up with ideas to say, hey, can we do this? We were thinking, could we create, this cool pre-party at a couple of your shows for some of our clients? Can we bring them in? Can you come to our office and maybe do a special acoustic set for our employees? I mean, before you know it, the creativity starts happening, ideas start to happen, and that becomes part then of your sponsorship package when you put all that together.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, wow. You want to get the conversation going. That's where the magic starts to happen.
Very cool. Well, I'm out of questions. I think the audience is out of questions, but that was a good run, I think. But yeah, if there is no more questions, thank you for doing this today. This has been great and eventful and enlightening and everything. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. So
yeah. Well, thank you for those who joined today, and of course we'll have the replay so we can share this with everybody who was unable to make it today. So,
and everyone on here too, my contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a conversation.
If you click on the chat panel, I should be able to see it there, hopefully. So, if not, I can send it out with the replay as well.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that, Matt. If you could do that, that's great.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.